G'day and welcome. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. Today we're continuing our series of interviewing the major non-socialist Calgary mayoral candidates. We've already spoken with Jeff Davison and Jeremy Farkas, and I'm pleased today to welcome outgoing councillor for Ward 1 and Calgary mayoral candidate Sonya Sharp.
Hi.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've been in with Corey before.
Yes.
I think you've spoken to our City Hall reporter, Mike Thomas, before.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. But I just want to get on the action myself
Okay.
because, I've been so confused about, how non-socialist or conservative Calgarians should vote.
Mm-hmm.
It's a messy election.
Mm-hmm.
One was supposed to be theoretically less messy because we had parties. Parties should actually make it maybe a bit neater when you have a nomination process and whatnot. That's not been the case here. I do think in the end, the party system will likely provide some more predictability for things, and you don't have candidates who are broadly similar running against each other. I always thought it was going to take a couple elections for it to kind of come out in the wash till there's a clear kind of conservative party, clear, more leftist party, etc. For yourself, maybe you make the case about conservatives who are so split. There's so many undecideds who are disproportionately conservatives too, who don't know how to vote. And why should confused conservatives in Calgary vote for you over, say, Jeff Davison or Jeremy Farkas?
I think what's important is just looking at my track record, especially the fact that I just coming off of a 4-year council where things that didn't matter to Calgarians or they weren't important to Calgarians or Calgarians spoke against crossed the finish line. I was always on the other side of that vote. And I've listened to Calgarians. I would say I am extremely fiscally responsible when it comes to city hall budgeting. And I care and I listen. And so there are things that happened, I think, Jeremy and Jeff were on council with Joe T. And I know, he had mentioned that, maybe Jeff and I have similar policies, but Jeff actually voted in line with everything Jody did when they were on council together. And Jeremy was the outlier. And Jeremy had a tough time bringing consensus. So on this council, I'm kind of the outlier with some of my colleagues, but I've also brought consensus when it mattered. I might have lost on the things that talked about fiscal responsibility, blanket rezoning, trying to stop that, climate issues that I tried to get an audit on. And so those are things that you would have seen me do in action. The other thing, when I look at my to-do list, because I know everyone has these aspirational platforms. Yes, I'm running with a team, and we built a team of people together to tackle City Hall issues day one, and we have the political muscle. But my to-do list is clear. Those things that we need to do is, repeal blanket rezoning, make our city safer. We have been endorsed by the Calgary Police Association to add 500 new police officers, to make our transit safe, to add that police station downtown. But what's really making me stand out compared to all the others is talking about bringing senior administration to heel. Until you kind of get a hold of the fact that senior administration reports to council and council reports to the people. That has to happen. And that's been lost in all of this. And I'm bringing that back. And all these ideas about budgeting, infrastructure, growth, nothing can happen until council takes kind of over that leadership at City Hall again, because we represent you, the people, and that's important. So that's where I would say that my argument is about me. That's very different than everybody else. That I see City Hall as a bit broken. And when I hear Calgarians want change, I know what they're talking about. They're not talking about just repealing blanket rezoning or making our streets safer. They're talking about the governance. They're talking about the culture at City Hall. And that's where I come in and say, I can fix that.
So, a preface and then a question. So I've moved out of the city for a variety of reasons, crime, taxes, and just wanted a little more space. But, I mentioned the first time I met you, I didn't vote for you because we didn't have party slates. I didn't see no one. No one had at least met me at my door. Maybe someone knocked on my door, but I wasn't there. Didn't know anyone. So my default is if I don't know who to vote for, I look at who the unions have endorsed and I vote for someone else. And I saw the unions had endorsed you, so I didn't vote for you. I'd voted for the next name on the list, essentially. Just That's my shot in the dark. And I'm used to voting for people and then being disappointed by them. You were a new experience for me where I didn't vote for you and then you surprised me by how well you performed. I remember just reading, watching things coming from council, and you're from the beginning. When they had the climate emergency declared, I thought at the time I looked at the amount of money they at least theoretically committed to it. Calgary could have bought an aircraft carrier and put it on the Glenmore, which I think would have been a better use of money. But you were on the right side of that from the beginning. I was like, oh, well, that's surprising. And then you're pretty consistently on the right side of things. We had blanket rezoning. So I'm not used to that. Normally disappointed by people I did vote for, not pleasantly surprised by people I didn't vote for. That was a nice change. One of the criticisms, though, of some people I know who are not voting for you, is that you had worked in the bureaucracy of City Hall in the administration for some time, and that on the one hand, yes, that means you know the ropes. You're kind of a Leslie Knope, and I mean that in a good way. I love, not her politics, but I love Leslie Knope, the character.
Okay.
So you know the ropes. You know how to handle City Hall, but on the other hand, would be a fear that having spent a significant part of your career in City Hall's administration, that you would be a creature of it, that you might be captured by it. How would you respond to that?
I would never have left if I was captured by City Hall or didn't want to fight City Hall. So I got the 16 years business experience, and I know I had the 20 years inside, now the 4 years as a politician. None of my opponents see that. But if you go back and look at some of the things I've tried to, I would say, bring to the surface are some of the issues happening in senior leadership. When we talk about expenses, when we talk about travels, when we talk about adding layers of bureaucracy where, what can you do with $2.5 million? How many police officers can you get for that? So I left for a reason. I left knowing that you can't fight City Hall from inside because you have a target on your back and you're going to get fired. So I made the decision to leave and run for council. I was elected. But if you can see that the knowledge I have is worth its weight in gold, to be honest, I can navigate that whole system better even than current incumbents on council. And I see things, and sometimes I bite my tongue because, maybe it's not the time and place to be public about things like that. But I have, I would say, proved to people that maybe didn't vote for me the first time because of my experience at City Hall, but knowing the ropes, like when you're in the city, right, you report and you have layers. And I reported to the city manager, and he's the CAO now. And, now on the other side, I challenge his, some of his policies or what he's doing. And some of my, I would say, colleagues on council don't know how to do it, or maybe don't want to do it. I have no problem, because at the end of the day, I'm a public servant. If I was in City Hall, or now that I'm outside City Hall, I'm still a public servant and I serve Calgarians. It's your taxpayer money, and you deserve to know exactly where it's being spent and how it's being spent. And so challenging status quo has always been my thing. I just know that you can't do it from inside. You have to do it from outside.
So speaking of City Hall, I'm not positive, but I think it may have been 2nd Street had come out with something about the pensions of city councillors, that there was kind of 2nd and 3rd pensions, the way it's all very complicated. Yeah. And I don't want to get into the actuarials of it. I spent a big part of my career when I was at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation actually studying the actuarials of MP pensions. We found it was all this other crazy stuff no one had known. It's all complicated. I won't get into it. But when Farkas was on council, he didn't take the pension. I think there's really only one reason to do that, is that's to give a politician the moral authority to perform these things. A lot of these our public sector pensions are almost entirely defined benefit, not defined contribution. Those are actuarially and financially problematic.
Right.
The idea is then to give you the moral authority to change it. When we succeeded in reforming, not abolishing, but reforming the federal MP pension, the hope was then that, okay, the Harper government now has the moral authority to change public sector pensions for federal bureaucrats. But then they didn't do it. So it was actually kind of, they did the symbolic thing to give themselves moral authority, then actually didn't do what they were supposed to do with the authority.
Yeah.
So what would you do with city council pensions? And beyond that, is there any kind of significant reform you would take to pensions for City of Calgary workers' pensions, which I know you want to defend them, that they're there.
No, I'm going to say they're very different, right? So, I wasn't, I'll be honest, I did attack Jeremy for what he said about not taking a golden pension. I think,
sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
I kind of am, but
that's okay. Because there's a difference between not taking one and taking one.
Yeah, I was surprised by that because it did come with a financial cost for him. You said, I think it almost made him more take home money. Yes, because but they're not getting the other half. So no, in the end, he left a lot of money on the table. I told him, like, when I was in politics, I made some of these symbolic sacrifice things, and you get no credit for it. And he didn't get credit for it, and then he didn't get elected mayor, and so nothing happened with it. But I do have to challenge you on that part. Like, it did, beyond the exact fiscal year, over the long term, he left a lot of money on the table with that action.
Well, I would say this is that when you don't take the pension, you don't get it deducted from your paycheck. And we asked HR out in public because you have a choice as an elected official. And so technically, it depends on how financially savvy you are. You could take that extra money and invest it.
Yeah, but no one in the right mind would. I want to, if
right.
I would 100% give my money for a defined benefit pension plan matched by my employer, the taxpayer, and I'm guaranteed it for life, and it's not up to the market.
Well,
no one in the right mind wouldn't.
And I would say I'd still challenge that because our elected official pension is based on the number of terms you serve. Mm-hmm. And so if you only do one term and you get that and you pay into it, it comes out to $350 to $400 a month when you're 65. There's nothing golden about that. And so when you don't take the pension and you get that extra money per paycheck per month, if you're fiscally savvy, you're going to invest that and you can make more money. And so I don't know how much is left on the table. I don't know people's financial situations. Should we be looking at pensions in general? Yeah, well, there should be an understanding if there's 2 or 3 different pensions, maybe some, I would say, I call them more like the senior bureaucrats are getting. New city staff aren't getting the types of pensions that people were getting back in the day. But what I was really focused on is the elected official pension. And so I've challenged Jeremy on that only because what we've been given is just a little bit different than hearing, what's golden about $500 a month. Nothing's golden.
It's that it's guaranteed for life, no matter how the investments do, which is different than a defined contract. I know a lot of people know the difference between defined benefit,
and that's fair enough.
It's all kind of.
I would just say is that if you're going to stand up and say, "I didn't take this," so then what? So what are you going to do about it? And like you said, like you want the credit, right? So if you want not to take something because you don't believe in it, so put it this way: we tried to not take our pay raises, right? And we have challenged the process of getting pay raises, and we're turned down because always a third party. So we put a pledge out saying that council should not be able to determine their raise, and we need to figure out if the average person isn't seeing the raise that council's seeing, then we should be able to stop our raises. But we weren't able to.
But the whole point, I think, of politicians taking a pay cut or not taking a pay increase. Mm-hmm. Not taking a pension, etc. The purpose is to give themselves moral authority to make tough decisions with the bureaucrats and other workers that are under them. So, if you are going to not take a pay increase or you're going to put it off to an arbiter or some kind of third party, is that then saying, is that what you would then do with city workers rather than just the regular tit for tat negotiation with the unions, and the unions normally get more? Because that's the biggest driver of costs in virtually any municipality is the payroll.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And and most governments, period. Federally, you have a bunch of transfers on top, but it's mostly payroll. And politicians, when they talk about, well, we're going to get costs under control, they always talk very vaguely. We're middle managers and finding our piece of keys. No, it's payroll. If you don't get the payroll of City Hall under control, none of that other stuff really adds up.
Goes back to my third point of my to-do list. The only person that reports to council right now is the city administrative officer. They're the only person that city council does a performance evaluation on. And the auditor, which you leave that one on the side. And so when you talk about, getting a new business, you usually open up those books, you see the governance structure, you look to see where efficiencies are. This new council will need to do the same thing. but your only single employee when you walk into that door, other than your staff in your office, is the city manager. So you need to have those conversations. So when I came to budget and I talk about bringing, amendments to lower the operating costs, that what brings up the tax rate or not, I'm trying to focus on things that aren't going to affect your day-to-day living in Calgary. So you're looking for those, excess waste, excess spending. And so that is really important because that's where you can bring things down.
Well, let's change gears a little bit here. Crime and drugs, I didn't consider to be particularly top of mind even 4 years ago. Certainly not 8 years ago, 12 years ago, but now it's everywhere. When I had Jeff here, I put, the alley right behind our office where I park my vehicle every day. There's drug zombies. It's everywhere. It's, our public transit have just become crime pipelines at this point. I know you've committed to hire 500 new officers, putting a station downtown. I mean, it's bizarre that we don't have a station downtown. But I'm not sure the answer is just more officers. I was just down in Washington, D.C., and a city not known for being particularly safe. Now, I was in the generally nicer part of it. I was not out in the more known dangerous areas. But there they brought in the friggin' National Guard. And maybe it was overkill, maybe not. But I was safe. I've not felt that safe in a big city since I can't remember. I didn't see a single addict on the sidewalks. The closest I saw was one old-fashioned drunk. An old-fashioned drunk, just a guy drinking a bottle of hooch and mumbling to himself and singing a song. That was I forgot we even had those. The good old days when we just have a good old-fashioned drunk on a sidewalk. We don't have that anymore. Wholesome way to do it. It's not just officers on the streets. It's the drug problem. The province is moving towards mandatory treatment. I actually don't know if it's going to work, but I'm just really willing to try anything.
I think that's
new at this point.
Well, I think that's what's scary is we do need to try things. So even Councillor McLean and I talked about adding turnstiles to some of the train stations. I know that we have had a lot of criticism about that in our past council, saying it's going to cost so much money. How can we put a cost right now to public safety where we need to make sure our trains are safe for everybody and making sure that we don't see the things we're seeing? The one thing about the open drug use that's happening in our city, we need to try something totally different. And I have called for the province to shut down the Schumer site and say, figure out what you need from the city. We control land. So if you need more locations, let's give you the more land, but we got to try something. We can't continue down this path.
What do you sound on mandatory treatment and cooperating with the province on that?
Sorry?
The province moving towards mandatory treatment will obviously require the participation of the Calgary Police Service. Where do you stand?
I would say that we've got to try see what works and what doesn't work. We've never done it yet, right? That's the thing.
But it is mandatory treatment a part of those things that you are willing to try?
I would say knowing that I have to keep the streets safe for you, if whatever they need to do to treat people, because what happens in the building is their responsibility. And so if mandatory treatment in a compassion way is the way to go, then that's the way to try it. There's other cities around the world that have done this and it's worked, but we can't sit back anymore and just watch this in front of us happen. But there needs to be compassion around this. And it's not just the province that has to step up.
Yeah, I don't think they're talking about picking them up in nets dog catchers and throwing a pen.
But I think this is, so the words that people use, and I think what happens is it's like a thing, right? So when you hear word mandatory, it's a trigger word. And so it needs to be compassionate intervention. And there needs to be not just the province and the city working together, but our partners that are making sure that, the population that needs the support gets the support. And so that's what's important here. And I have lived experience in that world. Nothing I'm going to share today, but it's there. You need to approach these situations with a lot of sensitivity. And that's critical. And not just the people that are needing the population that needs the support, but the people that are providing the support and helping them get on their way. That's going to be critical. It's going to be a lot of training. And I support whatever it needs to be for all Calgarians, including those that need the support of mental health and addiction issues.
Yeah, I think we're well past the point where there's broad support for treating drug addicts as criminals themselves. No, they're victims. They're patients who need to be checked in for help.
And I think
that's
put that around that.
Yeah,
right?
but I think where things are shifting is away from now enabling that sickness to curing the sickness, at least doing something to try.
Well, and people, we
So
all
it is-
deserve dignity, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's important, is how do we do this with everyone having the dignity to move forward with whatever treatment they need. And that's critical. And so it's new to our city, right? Like we're talking about something that, I mean, like you just said, you didn't think 8 years ago or 10 years. I was born and raised here too. I did not think that we would be having these conversations, but we are, and it's reality. And we have to figure out how we can move forward in a way that we have the compassion around, supporting all Calgarians.
All right, we mentioned it earlier, but it's one of the big issues: blanket rezoning.
Yes,
you voted against it.
I did.
Didn't
vote against blanket rezoning. I tried to stop it in 2023. And I took a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, no, it was good on you. Now, some of your opponents have said that you're squishy on ending blanket rezoning, that it's not just you're not going to end it, but that you are going to do some other.
Sure.
Okay, tell me how it's not wishy-washy.
Okay, so it's repeal. Period. You repeal blanket rezoning to go back where it needed to be prior to whatever that date was in May of 2024.
Full stop.
Full stop. Of course, there needs to be a process for people to, if you want to keep RCG, then you're going to have to go through a process, just like everyone else did last time. You're going to have to come to council. There's going to be a public hearing. You're probably going to have to pay for your permit, right? Like those are, and then you reform the planning department to make things happen quicker. And it's always been repeal, reinstate, reform. Those have been the three things I've been talking about this whole time. And so I have never been wishy-washy on repealing blanket rezoning. I know that there was a couple of people saying that they said that they were the first to say they repeal it. I tried to stop it. I tried to bring something forward in 2023 to say, this is a really bad idea. And when it was a policy idea. And I think what you can do is cut red tape. You could shave 4 months off the planning process. I spent most of my career in the planning department. You can use reserves to pay for permits. So anyways, long story short, we went through those public hearings and stood up and said, I absolutely am not supporting this. And it'll be the first business of the regular meeting of council of this new council once we're elected.
All right. Taxes.
Yeah.
Jeff Davison has committed to a just flat 4-year tax freeze. Not a cut, but a freeze. Do taxes stay flat for 4 years under you?
No, I'm cutting taxes. So there's a difference here. I want to see the tax rate drop. So 5.4% has been the guaranteed tax increase for residential homeowners for 2026. That's too high. We need to bring that tax rate down. There are things in the preview of the budget that do not belong in there that can bring those numbers lower.
Are you talking about cutting the scheduled tax increases or cutting the actual tax amount?
This scheduled increase, this scheduled increase is happening in November. So if you didn't do anything, it would be 5.4% for a residential homeowner.
Yeah. You
need to go in and bring that number down.
To zero?
Whatever you can bring it down, that you can still operate.
So when I say tax freeze, I mean like it's 000. 4 years.
So that's interesting because that's not what I'm getting out of the tax freeze.
Know what? Maybe I should.
That's a zero-based review.
I might need to go back to what he means by tax freeze because when I say tax freeze, I don't mean. I mean it stays.
You mean zero-based budgeting?
Yeah, like it just doesn't go up. That's a tax freeze to me.
Okay, so I
need to clarify with him what he means.
Okay, so what we've pledged for is basic budgeting. When you we can bring back a finance committee that's done in public. So So first of all, the 5.4 is too high. That's within the last 4 budget cycle. We need to bring a new budget for the next 4 years, and we as a new council do that in January. The last 4 years, Calgarians probably on the average would have seen on their average home 22% increase. That is extreme compared to what we've seen over the years.
That's one reason I got out of the city.
Well, and that's why we have no affordability issues and things like that. So we've pledged is to have a committee that's open to public, and that we are asking our senior administration to come to council or committee with their books. Open them up. Let's talk about it line item by line item. That is actually not happening right now. A lot of our conversations around finance and spending, some of them happen in closed doors, or they're a vague presentation you will see from, senior administration. That needs to stop. Things need to be identified. What needs, obviously, your needs and wants of a Calgarian, and the wasteful spending has to go. We need to get back to basic budgeting, which, helps with the potholes, water, snow clearing. Those are important things. If you go right down to zero, you will run into some issues in the future. You can end up in an infrastructure gap and things like that. But you need to make sure that you obviously are generating a revenue, but not overspending. And that's what we've seen in the last couple of years.
Okay. 2 questions. I'm going to go
Sure.
just slightly over time.
Okay.
Oh, your staff here is not going to kill me for it.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
We'll see. She looks tough. So I was in your ward. I still drive through it when I come into the office here.
Okay.
But when the water feeder blew, now we're all on reduced water in my area, but I at least had water. I wasn't in Montgomery Bonas, but
yeah.
The big problem to me was the friggin' traffic from construction for an entire friggin' summer, because we were not doing extremely simple, basic, nuts and bolts job of a municipal government. It's keep the streets safe, plowed, the parks clean, and the water flowing. That's the basics.
That's
of
your
it.
job.
And this happened, not that long after the city voted to spend the GDP of a small country on a climate emergency. So, I think really then there was, I said, the next mayor is going to be someone who just wants to make government boring again. Like they could put it on a red hat, make government boring again.
Or blue hat, because I like blue.
It could be blue. Yeah, this is Alberta, so big as blue. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's a good campaign slogan, just like someone who's just going to mind the P's and Q's of simple municipal government, not make it fancy anymore. Just the basic shit we expect to get done. But that stuff takes money. The water, if you want the water feeders properly maintained, you either have to not spend money on frivolous things, or you've got to raise taxes. You want to bring at least tax increases down. Where's the money going to come from? Because those things aren't cheap. Water feeders are not cheap items. But that's the stuff that really matters. Where's the money for getting back to basics on something like that going to come from, if it's not going to be from tax increases?
So I would say over the last 4 years, myself, Councillor Chabot, and Councillor McLean brought over $170 million in operating costs down. All voted against all the 4 years, which is fine. But you can find savings in the corporation. You can find the nice to haves and not impact one thing that you would notice driving to work every day. And so the water feeder main issue was a game changer for me, seeing what I saw every day when I went to Bonas, and mothers with strollers with water bottles, no babies in those strollers, getting water. And so this is your job. Your job is to be a public servant. And you know what? This job is supposed to be boring. It is not. There's nothing glorious about this job. A lot of people don't like you, and you have to be okay with that. And your job is to get out and make sure you have running water, clean streets, no potholes, snow clearing. And these are things that are basic budgeting. And that's why I go back to getting back to basics and making City Hall boring again. Whatever slogan you want to call. I like to roll up my sleeves and get to work. I am one of those people. And so it can be done. And there are a lot of things we can flatten right out in the corporation that nobody would know. And it would not impact your everyday, I would call it, drive into Calgary or you being here at work. It would not impact. But if you turn on your water tap one morning, not knowing there's a water main break and there's no water coming out, first thing you're going to think is, did I pay my bill?
Yeah.
Second thing, or you turn your water up and it's gross brown water coming out. How do you even know what's happening? Right. And so these are things that we can never be there ever again. That is, you can never be a city in our age, because our city's not old, where a catastrophic failure like this impacts the whole city. Things happen. We get it. But I am looking forward to reading this report that's coming at the end of this year on the water main, to talk a little bit about how we even got to the point where a catastrophic failure could happen.
It's great that'll come out long after all the votes are counted.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's too bad, because I was really hoping to see that before Election Day.
Okay. So crime and drugs was a question that you might have got, you at least come up in a municipal election before. My next one is one that I would have never conceived of would come up, but is now because it's just become such a big issue.
Okay.
And it's mass migration. It's not municipal jurisdiction at all, but the effects of it are certainly felt on our infrastructure, on our housing. It's not politically correct to say, but it does affect crime statistics, a lot of things. It's under the control of the feds. The province is at least musing about taking control of it. We'll see what happens. So I know you can't control the immigration rate. That's Ottawa.
No.
But we do have the province has the ability to take some control over it, and just it's one of the big things is driving the housing crisis in Calgary. It's just filtered down into so much. Understanding that, I know you can't control it. You're not the Minister of Immigration. You're running for mayor. But if you're talking to the federal Minister of Immigration, what is your message to them when they're saying, okay, well, how many immigrants would you like us to, migrants of various kinds, we'd like to settle, X amount in Calgary. What's your message to them around that issue? Understanding, I know you don't have the power to, but if they're listening to you.
I would say, well, first of all, my family came here from a different country too. So I'm a child of immigrants. And so I understand people move to Canada for a better life. And I think that's great. We love our city. You love the city. Like, I love Calgary. And culture is what just changes the landscape of so many things. And I think what's important is when I hear about people coming to Calgary and they have nowhere to live, or we don't have, enough schools or hospitals to support the amount of people that moved here or are moving here, the one thing we do have as a city is land. So I would look at the Premier and the government of Alberta and say, if you need support to build new schools, to build more hospitals, to build affordable housing, we have land and we can be cutting red tape to make sure those permits get processed fast. And we actually do have a role to play to support. I mean, it's hard to say, you don't ever want to be like, no, we don't want anybody. That's not okay. You need to build a city that's going to grow. And not just that, it helps with our, obviously the economic growth in the city. It helps with the vibrancy, but we have the land. So when I look at the fact that we need to support what's been going on, because we can't stop anything, but we need to make sure the land is available for people to build. We have land we can give up and sell, right? And people don't know this, right? We have land in where you used to live in Ward 1, and we have a lot of land up there. The city owns that land. Let's bring it to market, sell it to developers. The most affordable communities in Calgary, actually in the suburbs of our city. Let's get that land up to market. Let's get houses built on it.
So to some extent, I agree. Migration, I don't know, getting into a bigger topic, I guess, but
keep it simple, Derek. Simple. Remember, you just told me, keep it boring.
I know,
simple. Knowing our role and responsibility.
But migration for the vast majority of Canadian history has generally been an economic plus, has generally maybe made things more vibrant, but it's not that way right now. The way they've opened it up, temporary foreign workers and essentially phony student visas, that has not helped the economy. It's completely driven the bottom out of it for low-income people to be competitive to work themselves. It's created some, I'd say, anti-vibrancy issues in some cases, because we're not just bringing the best anymore. It's not the way it was a decade ago. We're in a very different system now. And yeah, we can build some more. That's definitely a part of the answer. But then the taxpayer who's already here has to bear the cost of building that new school for people who have not paid into the tax base. We have to pay the cost of building that new fire hall for people who have not been in the tax base yet. We can only absorb so much at a time. So is the answer just new building?
Well, I would say if you're looking at the municipality, that's the only thing we can control is the land and the regulatory system.
Sure.
That's where we land. That's our responsibility right there. And, I would say as, a future mayor to the city, you need to support anything that's coming your way. And if it's here in front of you, what's the solution to move forward on it? You can't go backwards. And so if the province says we need to build more schools, great. Where do you want to put these more schools? Do we have land? If the province says we need to build more Seniors homes, right? Because we have a seniors population, and they put money into our tax base. But I'll say one thing is our seniors probably need a little bit more relief when it comes to affordability than a lot of things. They built these cities for us. And so, we need to know what our role and responsibility is. And so it's funny because to end on that question, to talk about, staying in our lane, I know exactly as a mayor what my lane looks like and where I'm going to play a supporting role, or I'm going to play a partnership to the province and say, this is what I need for Calgary, and Calgarians will always come first. And I think, as soon as we can move people into some of these buildings, they pay into the taxes. It's kind of that we generate that revenue. And, you run for a city to create a place where it's affordable, where it's safe. And, at the end of the day, Derek, what's been lost at City Hall is trust. And so, I'm running on those three things of making sure Calgarians can trust City Hall again. So the decisions we make impact your everyday life, and that we're playing a supporting or advocating role to those other orders of government for issues that we know we can't control.
I'm going to slip one tiny one.
Okay, quickly, because we're going to get in so much trouble.
She's looking scary. It's kind of an unpopular thing to create more politicians, but I think, and you are currently an outgoing councillor. These wards are huge.
Yes, they are.
They have significantly more people than a provincial constituency. They're approaching the size of a federal constituency, but you have a fraction of the budget. And in many ways, like I say this for my MLA, you actually have a way more involved job than like most MLAs sit on the back bench. They read some talking points. They're handed to them by some staff who don't even work for them, and they're in their leader's office, and they vote as they're told, and they go home and they answer some phone calls. Not much. Some do a lot more, but for the most part, a city councilor's job is a hell of a lot more involved. You're dealing with all these issues on the ground. You're dealing with potholes and this issue in the park and a million things. These wards, I think, are too big. Now, more city councillors makes for maybe a more unwieldy council. Probably don't want it to be the size of a small parliament like Toronto, but although they're smaller than I guess they used to be. But what do you think about at least considering the idea of maybe shrinking down the size of the wards a bit to make them a bit more manageable and therefore more representative of the people in them? Because I know you probably don't want this. No one likes the idea, theoretically, more politicians. But I think the wards got to get smaller. They're too damn big.
Well, I think, so I come at this from a different angle. So I think there was about 120,000 people live in Ward 1. I also took over half of Ward 6. And I managed. And I'll be honest, what I liked about the compensation committee did is they also disagreed with more councillors because they thought it would be like too much. They gave us ability to hire more staff. And when you have the right staff in your area, work gets done. So I kind of had a ward and a half my last year of council, and you just manage. And again, getting into this job, you need to know your role and responsibility. You are the closest to the people. You have to like that. It's a public service job. And I would say, at this point right now, I think the 14 plus the mayor is good. Should it be reevaluated again? Absolutely. And it will be, because they're going to look at that. But smaller wards doesn't mean more efficient.
Not necessarily.
So, and smaller wards doesn't mean lower taxes. You need to elect the right people to represent your community and represent you, so that it doesn't matter how many people are in that horseshoe. Calgarians are getting what they deserve.
All right.
Okay.
I'm over time, so I apologize.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate
Councillor and candidate Sonya Sharp, thank you very much.
Thank you
for being with us today.
Great.
Thank you all of you for joining us today. Remember to go to westernstandard.news, click on subscribe. We're only $10 a month or $100 a year for unlimited access to all Western Standard content and get past the pesky paywall. Normally we do an election night coverage of things, but I guess the balloting is going to be a bit slower this time. I don't want to be here till 3 a.m. So we're going to be here first thing Tuesday morning next week with the election results. It'll be probably a little anticlimactic. We won't be able to do our pretend Wolf Blitzer with a big screen with the votes coming in. It's not going to be like that, but we'll break down the results and discuss them. And maybe my guest will be having a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, and God bless.